You can know how to talk to people and still have no idea how to truly connect with them. You can sit in a room full of laughter, understand every joke, respond when someone speaks to you, and yet leave feeling like you were never really there. Maybe you've noticed that conversations become exhausting when they stay on the surface. Maybe you've had friendships that seemed perfectly normal at first, only to slowly disappear because something inside you stopped feeling engaged. And the strangest part is that you may genuinely want close friends. So why does connection sometimes feel harder for people who spend so much time thinking? The answer isn't simply that intelligent people are introverted, socially awkward, or different. There's something more subtle happening beneath the surface. And once you understand it, some of your past friendships may suddenly make a lot more sense. One of the first things to understand is that intelligence doesn't automatically make someone socially better. In fact, a mind that constantly searches for patterns, inconsistencies, deeper meanings, and connections can sometimes make ordinary social interaction feel strangely unsatisfying. Imagine someone asking, "How was your weekend?" Most people might simply answer, "Good. Yours?" But another person might instantly wonder what the question actually means. Are they genuinely interested? Is this just conversational politeness? Should I give a detailed answer or keep it casual? Why are we talking about the weather again? The conversation hasn't become difficult because the person doesn't know how to communicate. Their mind may simply be processing far more than the moment requires. And that creates the first paradox. The ability to think deeply can make it harder to enjoy shallow interaction. If you've ever quietly wondered why your mind seems to work differently, subscribe. Every week we explore the hidden psychology behind thoughts and behaviors most people never notice. But that's only part of the story. Because eventually, something even more interesting happens. A highly analytical person may stop looking for people they can simply spend time with and start looking for people they can actually connect with. That sounds harmless, but it changes everything. Instead of asking, "Do I like this person?" they may unconsciously ask, "Can I have a meaningful conversation with this person? Do they understand the way I think? Can I be completely myself around them?" Suddenly, friendship becomes less about proximity and more about psychological compatibility. And that can dramatically shrink the number of people who feel genuinely interesting. You might know dozens of people and still feel close to almost none of them. This is where another misunderstanding appears. People often assume that someone who spends a lot of time alone must not want friends. But solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. Someone can enjoy being alone because solitude gives them space to think, recover, create, and explore their interests. What they may actually dislike isn't being alone, it's being around people while feeling unable to connect with them. That distinction is enormous. Because once you experience enough conversations that feel empty, repetitive, or performative, you may begin protecting your attention. You stop forcing connections. You stop joining every conversation. You become selective. And from the outside, that can look like arrogance. But sometimes what looks like rejection is simply selectivity. There's another layer that makes this even more complicated: overanalysis. A person who notices tiny changes in tone, facial expressions, pauses, and word choices may sometimes become painfully aware of social uncertainty. Did I say too much? Did that sound strange? Why did they suddenly stop talking? What did they mean by that? The conversation ends, but the mind keeps going. And this is where intelligence can become tangled with self-consciousness. The same analytical ability that helps someone solve complicated problems can turn inward and start dissecting ordinary interactions. The result? A perfectly normal conversation can become a mental investigation. But here's where everything changes. The real problem may not be that intelligent people are incapable of making friends. It may be that they are sometimes searching for the wrong kind of friendship, because friendship isn't built entirely through intellectual stimulation. It is also built through repetition, shared experiences, inside jokes, small conversations that seem meaningless, being around someone when nothing particularly interesting is happening. And this is something a highly analytical mind can underestimate. The deepest friendships aren't always created during profound conversations. Sometimes they are created while doing ordinary things together, long before either person realizes that trust is forming. That means the person searching for a perfect intellectual connection may accidentally overlook someone who could have become a meaningful friend. And this is perhaps the most important realization of the entire story. You don't need someone who thinks exactly like you. You need someone with whom you can be real. Someone who doesn't require you to constantly explain yourself. Someone who can tolerate your strange interests, your quiet moments, your intense curiosity, and the parts of your personality that don't fit neatly into ordinary social expectations. If this describes something you've experienced, share it in the comments. Someone reading your story may finally understand something they've struggled to explain for years. Because once you understand this, friendship starts to look different. You stop measuring your social life by how many people you know. You stop assuming that being alone means something is wrong with you. You stop trying to make every person understand every part of you. And you become more comfortable allowing relationships to develop naturally. You may even discover something unexpected. Sometimes connection begins precisely when you stop trying to prove how interesting, intelligent, or different you are. You simply listen. You laugh. You show up. You let another person see you without turning the interaction into an examination. And slowly, something changes. The person who once wondered, "Why can't I connect with anyone?" begins asking a better question. Who actually makes me feel like myself? That question changes the entire search. Because you no longer need everyone to understand you. You only need a few people who genuinely do. Imagine walking into a room and no longer feeling pressured to impress anyone. You notice someone who shares one of your strange interests. You start talking. The conversation isn't perfect. It isn't profound. You don't analyze every sentence afterward. You simply enjoy being there. And perhaps that is what real maturity looks like. Not becoming less intelligent, less curious, or less selective, but learning when your mind needs to analyze something and when it can simply experience it. If you're committed to becoming this version of yourself, subscribe and join a community of people who are choosing depth over conformity. Because maybe the reason you struggled to find your people was never that you were incapable of connection. Maybe you were simply expecting connection to feel intellectually extraordinary before allowing it to become emotionally meaningful. And sometimes, the people who understand you best won't be the people who can follow every thought inside your mind. They'll be the people who make you feel safe enough to stop thinking for a moment. So the next time you find yourself wondering why friendship has always felt strangely difficult, ask yourself something deeper. Are you actually searching for people who understand everything about you, or are you searching for people around whom you no longer feel the need to explain yourself? Which part of this felt like something you've been living without having the words for? Share it in the comments below. Your experience may be exactly what someone else needs to hear.